Hello everyone. So the criticism aimed at Half Man episode 4 essentially comes down to one central issue. The show keeps demanding emotional investment without clearly defining the emotional core of its central relationship. That's especially notable because the series carries strong expectation due to Richard Gar's involvement after Baby Reindeer. Baby Reindeer worked largely because every uncomfortable moment, tonal shift, and emotional breakdown was rooted in painfully clear psychological motivation. Even when characters behaved irrationally, viewers understood the wounds driving them. According to this review, Halfman hasn't not yet earned that same clarity. The biggest frustration is relationship between Niall and Ruben. The series clearly wants their bond to feel obsessive, traumatic, and emotionally destructive, but the show apparently continues withholding the foundation why behind it. Ambiguity can absolutely work in character dramas, but only if the audience feel like there is intentional depth behind the mystery. Here, the reviewer argues the vagueness is beginning to feel less like deliberate storytelling and more like narrative avoidance. Episode 4 seems to intensify the problem through the large time jump. The transition into the adult version of the character appearing disorienting because Niall suddenly behaves with far more volatility and agency than before. Yet the audience skipped the formative years that would explain how he became this person. The result is a protagonist who feels emotionally disconnected from his earlier self. Instead of evolution, it risks feeling like replacement. The critic about Jamie Bale not looking the part is really secondary to the larger issue. Viewers are struggling to emotionally recognize who Niall even is anymore. The review repeatedly returns to the same question: why is Niall obsessed with Ruben? And that question matters because the show's entire emotional architecture depends on it. If the audience cannot understand the source of the fixation, whether it's guilt, dependency, suppressed desire, resentment, trauma, or identity confusion, then the escalating violence and emotional confrontation lose narrative force. Interestingly, the reviewer suggests the show might actually work better if it fully committed to romantic or sexual tension between the stepbrothers rather than vaguely circling it. That's because Niall's behavior apparently resembles that of a bitter ex lover more than a wounded sibling. By refusing to define the nature of the attachment, the series leaves viewers stuck interpreting emotional intensity without thematic grounding. Another major criticism is the show's reliance on screaming matches instead of dramatic construction. The hospital confrontation sounds like the clearest example. Rather than revealing character through action slice or accumulated emotional detail, the series reportedly leans on prolonged shouting and exposition heavy arguments to create intensity artificially. The reviewers point that the shows keep telling viewers that this relationship matter instead of demonstrating why it is a strong criticism for a character focused drama. That also explains why the barn reveal Niall killing Ruben apparently lands more as a shock value than tragedy. Violence without emotional context can surprise audiences, but it cannot devastate them. The reviewer seems frustrated because the series wants the climax to feel inevitable and emotionally catastrophic. Yet the relationship itself still feels underdeveloped. The phrase louder than it needs to be perfectly captures that criticism. The episode appears to mistake emotional volume for emotional depth. Still, there are hints the reviewer hasn't fully given up on Halfman yet. The references to Niall's unseen book, the blackmail subplot, and unresolved details suggest there's still hope the series is building towards a larger thematic payoff. The concern is simply that 4 episodes in, the audience should feel anchored to the emotional logic of the story rather than constantly searching for it. In contrast to Baby Reindeer's uncomfortable precision, Halfman currently sounds like a show operating heavily on atmosphere, tension, and volatility while still withholding the key emotional truth needed to unify everything. Thank you for watching. Bye.